What is cheap, 100% cotton, and a total blank canvas? Unisex t-shirts. So let's take this shapeless but affordable t-shirt and transform it into something fit for high tea. Or maybe just the office, because history bounding shouldn't have to cost hundreds of dollars. Hey y'all, I'm Jackie, and I thought it might be fun to resurrect my old college hobby of reconstructing t-shirts and turning them into something completely different, this time with a historical twist. Regency fashion, naturally. Supplies. You can use any kind of t-shirt you want. The only rule here is that it needs to be at least one size larger than your standard size that you wear. But bigger is better. So this is perfect for that baggy t-shirt you have stashed in your closet that you never wear. I picked this one up at a box store for about $5. Handy tip, you can also buy plain 100% cotton t-shirts from your local craft stores. And if you watch for a sale, you can pick them up really cheap. And if you don't care what the logo or color is, thrift stores are also a really great place to look for t-shirts if you're on a budget. Since I want to utilize my full Regency puff sleeves, and since I want to keep the trapezoidal back construction that is so indicative of this particular era of clothing, I'm going to have to be a little creative with my pattern placement. Note that this t-shirt is one size larger than my actual size, and my life would have been so much easier if I'd gone up one more. I'm using the Laughing Moon Regency pattern number 126 as the base for my shirt. I already had this on hand as I've done a couple of Regency gowns in the past. But if you are interested in Regency at all, I highly recommend picking up this pattern. It's only about $7 US and includes 3 different bodice and sleeve options, so it's very versatile and quite easy to follow. Okay, that wasn't working, so let's go ahead and cut off the sleeves and do some marinating. Y'all, we're learning this together. I have very little plan, and this is going to be a little chaotic. You've been warned. By the way, I do have a really cool idea for a patternless adjustable shirt, kind of like this, but inspired by the round gowns of the 1790s. So if you think that's something you might want to see me do a video on, I would love for you to just pop that like button so that I know that there's interest. Now there's a gaping hole I can't fit my face through. Yay! I still don't have enough fabric, so I'm gonna have to rip out the hem. Sigh. I put it on my body and marked about where I wanted the back of the neck to be. Then I traced an approximate neckline on the front so I had an idea of what I wanted the finished look to be. I also marked the length of the side so I know how long to make it. We're also going to make our lives easier by piecing the underarm, which means we can get the full puff. This is the most important bit to get right. So let's go ahead and get the large part of the sleeves cut so we can figure out the rest of the bodice with whatever we have left. I also wanted to say a quick hello and welcome to all of the new faces around here. If you haven't done so already, I would love for you to pop down into the comments and introduce yourself. And for everyone, whether you're new or returning, I would love to know what era of history you think would do really well t-shirtified. I bet y'all could come up with a lot of different ideas that I didn't even think of. I decided to cut the side bodice on the cross grain to utilize the fabric I had. Not ideal, but it's the only way to get it to fit. The bodice back fits quite nicely along the opened sleeve, with the exception of this little point, but that's just seam allowance, so no biggie. You'll see this bit later in the video. Mwahaha! Let's talk about knits, baby. Let's talk about elasticity. No, actually, let's talk about them for a second. A lot of people are intimidated by knits, but you do not have to be. Here are just a few quick tips applicable to this particular project. 1, if you have a rotary cutter, use it. It's a lot easier with knits. Mine disintegrated and I haven't replaced it yet, so I'm going to have to use my scissors. This is always important in your makes, but especially with cotton jersey, which likes to shrink in weird ways, you really need to make sure that you pre-wash and dry in the machine your t-shirt before you start working on this. The best thing to sew seams with knits is a serger, but do not worry if you don't have a serger. A regular machine will do just fine. However, with your regular machine, the needle matters. Make sure you're using a jersey needle or a ballpoint needle to handle your knits. And of course, make sure you use the appropriate size in relation to the weight of your fabric. There are a couple of stitches on your machine I would recommend to use knits. So normally if I was doing this and I wasn't short on thread, I would use this little stitch here, this 11, I call this the serger stitch. Any of these little zigzaggy ones I think would suffice. Also, if your machine doesn't have anything like that, you can just use a plain old zigzag stitch. The one thing you don't want to do is use a straight stitch on your knits, because as soon as you pull and the fabric stretches, the thread is going to pop and break. If you don't have a serger, zigzag or one of your serger stitches here. This is not strictly necessary, but I'm using a smaller seam allowance for this, so I'm opting to make my zigzag a little bit narrower. Just like that, the bodice back was assembled. Okay, so this is where things are going to get a little bit weird, but bear with me, I have a plan. First, I drew the bodice front piece across the very top of my t-shirt. Yes, we're ignoring all of the lines I drew earlier. And this weird shaped piece is what I have left over to deal with the bottom of the shirt. Now to attach the bodice front to the bodice side. Note that they are not the same size. This is because of the bib front construction of the original Regency gown, but we'll fix that later. This is the bit I have left to cut out the straps. No measurement here, I'm just eyeballing what looks good. I don't have enough spare fabric to avoid the shoulder seam, but I kind of like it as a throwback to the t-shirt that this was originally. Just gotta make sure we put the seams in the same spot on both sides so it looks intentional. I got smart after I serged the bodice front without checking the size first, and went ahead and pinned it to try it on for the next step. Ha! New trend alert! What do you think? All right, so what this is sheer laziness. I put this together with basically the longest piece at the shortest piece, and I just wanted to see what it would look like. Actually, it pretty much works, except my seam is right here, which is weird. However, it is a bit too big. There's room here for some darts, so we're gonna go ahead and put that in. And I also have, I don't know, about 3 inches on each side pulled up because there's extra overlap room that I accounted for, but then I didn't account for because I was lazy. I think this is gonna look weird. You're not gonna see much of it. I'm gonna fiddle around with it and see where we can get, but first we gotta take this off and do the other adjustments. After marking the start and end of the bust darts, I realized, that's gonna be a huge dart. Then I undid the top bit and measured. I've got a full 3 inches extra on each side. Since that added up to the total overlap of the bib front, I decided, let's just cut that whole bit off. But let's test it before we snip it. That's so much better. I still have a little bit of space for darts, and ta-da! The back is just about even now with the front. So now we can actually just cut that weird piece of fabric as a rectangle and put the seam in a normal spot instead of having like this weird little side thing. I feel so much better. If you're getting frustrated or if you can't work something out, this is why it's so good to just stop and go do something else and come back to it when your mind is fresh. Because if I had continued this yesterday like I really needed to, we would not be ending up with something as nice as I think we are going to be ending up with now. Believe it or not, once this is sewn, there's very little left to do, so let's go ahead and get everything finished. The darts are now 1 inch wide and 3 inches tall. With darts, it's a good practice to tie a knot with the threads at the very point to keep it smooth. Then iron the darts out. Sew the straps onto the back and then iron in the raw edge all along the outside part of the strap and the back neck edge, but not the inside bit of the strap where the sleeve goes. Now to attach the bodice front to the bodice back for reals. Then go ahead and finish that back edge. I'm choosing a zigzag stitch, though there are a lot of other options for hem finishing knits. Again, I did no measuring for the bottom portion of the shirt. All I did was find the narrowest part of the strip and measured 2 parallel lines across to get a rectangle. Off camera, I pinned the bottom portion to the top portion and sewed it closed so the seam matched the center back seam. Ta-da! All right, I'm gonna slap a quick hem on the bottom of this and we will come back and deal with the worst part, which is, of course, the sleevels. Woo! And now, time for sleevels. First, we need to cut the pieced underarm. Trace around the pattern, and then cut it out, making sure to give yourself some seam allowance. Jackie, seam allowance. Jackie. Ah! You'd think I'd have learned from the Angelica gown disaster, but no. Let's try it again. There we go. Now, time to puff! Run 2 sets of gathering stitches along the top and bottom of each sleeve. The 2 sets is a pain, but trust me when I say with puff sleeves, you want that extra control. Remember that cuff bit that we cut off the sleeves earlier in the video? We're going to use that as the actual sleeve cuff because why reinvent the wheel? Starting at the bottom, gather your sleeve to the width of the cuff. Make sure you gather from both ends so you don't accidentally pull out all your basting stitches. Then pin the cuff to the sleeve with the right sides together. Note that I'm using a 5/8 inch seam allowance on the sleeve portion because that's what's in the pattern, but I'm using a scant 3/8 of an inch for the cuff since it's already so small. Then sew it together. I'm tempting fate here by just serging it instead of basting first, but you are better off with the basting. Then press the cuff down and the seam up. Then stitch the whole sleeve together. Mine was a little off, but oh well. Now we need to set in the sleeve. Normally, I'm an advocate for hand sewing your sleeve in because it gives you so much more control, but because this is a stretch knit, that's not an option. When machine setting in a sleeve, particularly a gathered sleeve, take your time, baste it in, try it on before each step, and double check everything to avoid having to redo. Make sure all your dots and notches are in place before you start. I want to take a second to thank all of my Ko-fi supporters. Y'all are so kind and generous, and your support keeps this channel running. No donation is too small to help me out. But if you don't have the means, that's totally cool too. Just by watching this video and making it to the end, you are helping me out, and I appreciate the heck out of you. Place the sleeve into the arm side, right sides together with raw edges matching. Pin together the underarms and then stop at the beginning of the basting on each side. Then pull up your basting stitches until the sleeve fits the arm side, again making sure to pull from both ends. Now from here, you'll want to machine or hand baste the sleeve together, but I don't have enough thread, so I'm going to do the ballsy thing and just serge it on. Do not recommend. Wish me luck. If, like me, you're gonna do the stupid thing, use a lot of pins and go slow. Last thing to do was reinforce the top puff a little. Stiff tulle is the best for this, but for some reason my cursed tutu tulle that I still have lying around somewhere is nowhere to be found. So I cut some strips that I did not measure from some random black cotton I had nearby. I serged the edges and then ran a double line of basting on one of the long sides. Gather it up, pin it to the inside of the sleeve at the top of the puff, and just whip stitch that baby in by hand. Phew! I didn't think I was gonna get this thing done in time. Let's go check out the reveal. If you're interested in more Regency fashion, you can check out this video here, where I use this very same pattern to panic sew an entire Regency gown in a week. Ugh. Thanks for watching, folks. I love y'all, and I'll catch you in my next video.